Hello and welcome to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. It is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, and it's time for some jury duty. Joining me, as always, is Aaron.
What's up?
How you doing, Aaron?
Not too bad, and how are you?
Good. It is time for us to discuss a bunch of stuff today, mostly TV stuff, actually, or streaming stuff.
We get into the fun stuff.
I hope you guys are all enjoying the new episodes. As of recording this, our new episodes are now rolling out. We've got, I think, Madam Web and Wicker Man are live when we're recording this, as well as a jury duty. So, yeah, we're back in the flow. How does it feel?
Sorry, you're asking me, or is that a rhetorical question to our fans here?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I feel great. I'm excited. It's so much fun. So much fun just watching movies and talking about them. Because, normally I'd just be watching movies and then, just sitting down and thinking about them, and that would be it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Just staring vacantly out the kitchen window.
Yeah.
Thinking,
Or like anytime you watch a movie where it kind of like rocks your world, and then you leave the theater or like get up off of the couch after you watch the movie and you don't know what to do with yourself. But now we could just come talk on this podcast here. Totally.
Well, the response has been really awesome. Everybody, you've said so much kind and encouraging stuff, and the downloads and everything are doing great, considering we've been gone for 4 years and haven't really started advertising any of that stuff yet. So I just want to reiterate, if you love the show, let a few friends know and drop a review or a rating. It really helps us grow, helps us conquer the algorithm, and reach new people. So thanks again, guys, for all the support. And we hope you like these jury duty episodes. The jury duty episodes historically don't get as many in as much engagement or downloads as our mainline episodes, but we still enjoy doing them. And for the faithful few that do check these out, it's always nice to let you guys know what's coming up down the pipe and sharing more of our initial impressions on more recent stuff. And so
not only that, but we get to talk about things that aren't necessarily bad.
Exactly. Yeah, not everything makes it to the mainline episodes. And sometimes it can be tricky deciding what to do for the mainline episodes. We hum and haw a lot of different films, so.
Yeah, and if anyone out there has any suggestions, we're always willing to hear them.
Totally. All of our social media links are in the show notes. You can check them out. Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, our email's in there, all the usual suspects. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So with that all out of the way, Aaron, what have you been watching?
I recently checked out season 2 of the Ring of Powers. So huge. I'm a huge, Lord of the Rings fan. J.R. Tolkien. Always have been a bit a fan of that high fantasy stuff, and was very excited to hear that they would be making this show.
You are wise to fear these rings. In Sauron's hands, they could work an evil beyond reckoning.
Aegion must not fall. It would be a mortal blow for all Middle-earth.
Sooner or later, Sauron's eye bores a hole. The rest of him slithers in.
Upon watching season 1, it left a lot to be desired, but overall, just being such a fan of that whole entire universe there, I'm pretty much going to be excited about it, whether it's good or bad. But with that being said, season 1, I'm not sure. Have you seen it, Dan, or
no,
you stayed away from it?
I stayed away from it. I watched the first episode and decided it wasn't for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, I don't know, I'm probably guilty of consuming way too much content, more than I should be. And this is one of those shows that kind of fell victim to that. But I'm glad I did, because like I said, I do enjoy that world quite a bit. With the new season, it's only 3 episodes so far. I think there might be a new episode, the 4th episode, dropping today here. But overall impressions, I think it's it's good. It could be better. I just can't believe that there's people out there that are like, hey, I can do a better job than J.R. Tolkien. Than you know what I mean? And you're like this guy is like a legend. Like, you know, he's inspired so much stuff, created this entire world. And who are you? And why do you think that you could like improve on his work? And so my one like bone to pick, and I guess this kind of goes across, you know, and this can go across, you know, so many different things. Not only Lord of the Rings or Ring of Powers, but like Star Wars, Marvel, like anything where it's not original content. But I just think that people get into this trap of, you know, they want to do something to make it their own, but they also want to do justice to like the source material, but then it also has to be adapted to main screen. And you can definitely tell that this show has fell victim to this. And I feel that studios bank heavily on nostalgia and fan service. And sometimes they don't even make a well thought out show or movie, and they just jam pack it with like a lot of little Easter eggs and fan service so that to distract you from the actual storyline. And I feel like the best way you can do it is just make a authentic show and don't try to you know, play off the nostalgia of material that came before it, and just make your own original show. And if they would have done that with the Ring of Powers, I think it would have been a you know, like a very, very high rated show.
Yeah, and that's the criticism I've heard about it almost universally, and why I shied away from it is, you know, when it comes to the lore behind Lord of the Rings and the world building, you cannot modify any of that without enraging all the people that love that stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime you change a blade of grass from Tolkien's universe, you're going to provoke a response. And I totally empathize with that. And so, you know, like, I was hesitant to watch it because although I'm not as well versed on the lore, I do love the books, and I do love, obviously, Peter Jackson's trilogy. And I not so much the Hobbit trilogy, but I'm seeing so many trends in modern entertainment where the source material isn't honored and it's not treated with respect. And in a lot of ways, it's almost like you said, it's like these writers look at it and think, well, sure, that exists, but maybe, you know, I'm going to put my own mark on it, kind of thing. They're almost like an ego to it. And that kind of approach, it really turns me off. And although I'm not mad that the Rings of Power exists, and maybe I would be if I watched it, who knows? But like, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. Like,
it's nowhere near the level that like how Disney did Star Wars dirty. It's nowhere near nowhere near that level, but definitely like that's what I mean. It's very mediocre. Like and you would expect it to be, you know, I think it had something like $1 million budget or $1 billion budget.
Billion, yeah.
Yeah, something insane like that. So you're expecting like one of the best shows. And you know what I will say? Like character design, outfits, costumes, set design, all of that stuff is beautiful. Soundtrack, beautiful. Some of the characters like are actually very good actors. I would say everyone is a good actor, but it's maybe their source material that's like not the greatest.
Yeah. I read something this week on X about how the orcs were now basically they had families, and the orcs were now treated as if they were sort of forced to do bad things, and they weren't necessarily evil wasn't necessarily in their nature. And I thought that was kind of made my eyes roll back in my head when I read it. Is that true? Does that come across in the show?
Well, I think it's a little bit more complex than that because the way that they're setting up the show is they're trying to show that they're trying to do that in order to make Sauron look like an even more bigger villain, right? They're trying to make the orcs have a little bit of humanity so that because they're like the whole entire story is about the rings, right? And the creation of the rings and what the rings exactly do. And so I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm pretty sure what's going to end up happening is Sauron's obviously going to use the ring in order to completely control a bunch of orcs, and I think that's the way it's going to go. So I kind of think that's why it's like that.
Right, it's almost like he's corrupting them and ripping out their... Well, that's interesting. That's more insightful than what I read online, so that is interesting.
Yeah. I think that's where it's going. Like I said, we're only 3 episodes in to the second season here, so still lots to be revealed, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do another jury duty here when it ends.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, another show that's just a couple episodes in that I've been enjoying is Only Murders in the Building. Just kicked off season 4.
Or Only Murders in the Building. I'm Charles Hay.
What the hell?
Din Savage. You can just splice that onto the Charles Hay.
Yeah, I'll get out the splicer.
It stars Selena Gomez, Martin Short, and Steve Martin. And I really enjoy this show. Each season kind of has its own flavor, and I think it's really smartly written, and it's really funny. And it's kind of crazy to see Steve Martin and Martin Short just have this amazing kind of career comeback, because I thought Steve Martin was essentially retired and just doing music. But this show, I'm telling you, they're doing some of their best work, comedically and dramatically in this show that I've ever seen. And Selena Gomez, her character is, I think you'd love her personality, Aaron. She's sarcastic, dark humor, and on paper, it sounds like maybe it would kind of just be like a whatever sort of, Disney Plus show. But I highly, highly recommend this show. Each season is essentially based around a murder that happens in the New York high-rise building that they live in. And they are essentially these unlikely friends that come together and start a podcast about these various murders. So they're kind of they're
basically
the crime.
us.
Basically, they're haphazardly solving these crimes, getting into all sorts of hijinks. There's all sorts of hilarious secondary characters and guest appearances, and each season has its own kind of fresh angle. The 3rd season I thought was fantastic. The ending was a little clunky, but this new season, they've kind of transplanted them, and they're doing a lot of stuff in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Which I'm always skeptical about. I'm always skeptical when a show does the LA season or the Hollywood season because it's kind of lazy and whatever. But this show is off to a really strong start, and I'm legitimately excited to see where it goes next. Zach Galifianakis is in this current season, and Eugene Levy, and Eva Longoria is in the new one as well. And that's just who's been announced. The guest appearances always kind of take you by surprise. In the last season, I'm not even going to spoil it, but in the last
Are there
season,
a lot of guest appearances?
I would say each season probably has about 4 or 5.
Okay, that's
throughout.
Cool.
But they always tend to play a part in the story. They're not just kind of walk-ons. They're sort of playing a part.
Okay.
Somebody that Steve Martin and Martin Short are friends with in real life.
Yeah.
And so...
shoot, I wish
charming.
I didn't get rid of my Disney Plus.
Maybe you can log into mine.
Dad, not on the air. Don't let him hear.
So yeah, I recommend it. It's smart. It's charming. It's a bingeable series for sure. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So Dan, is there any other movies you've watched recently?
Yeah. So I checked out M. Night Shyamalan's Trap.
Cooper. Jamie. What's with all the police trucks outside? The cameras everywhere, Jamie. I'm not supposed to tell. Something happening? Don't rat me out. I won't. You know, the butcher? The freaking nut job that goes around just chopping people up? Well, the feds or whatever heard that he's gonna be here today, so they set up a trap for him. This whole concert, it's a trap.
It's a trap. Sorry.
It's a trap. He's no stranger on this podcast, and I decided to check out his most recent offering. I was pretty intrigued by his last one, A Knock at the Cabin, and it was clunky but interesting. So I was pretty interested in Trap. Trap stars Josh Hartnett as Cooper, Ariel Donahue as Riley, and M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Salika Shyamalan, plays Lady Raven, this pop star. And as the trailers have given away, it's essentially the premise is Cooper is taking his daughter to a concert. She's really excited about it. But what Cooper doesn't know is the entire concert is actually an elaborate trap. The FBI is trying to catch this notorious serial killer, and they know he's going to be attending this concert. And right from the trailers, they kind of spoil the fact that Cooper, Josh Hartnett's character, is in fact this serial killer. And so he's trying to wiggle his way out of this situation, and all the while, the walls are kind of closing in on him. Mm-hmm. It sounds pretty cool, but I have not felt this torn on a movie in ages, Aaron. I watched this, and I just felt so conflicted. I was like, did I like this? Did I hate this? So much happens in this movie that strains plausibility, and all the dialogue feels very alien. Like, there's so many conversations where the way the shots are set up is the person's talking directly to the camera.
Okay.
And then it'll go to like the other person and they're talking directly in the camera.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has this weird kind of claustrophobic and yet super cheap kind of vibe to it. And a lot of weird things happen at this concert that don't really happen at concerts in real life. And like all this, it was kind of a classic M. Night Shyamalan, but probably one of his better movies to date.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, there's some stuff in this movie that, like, this entire movie felt kind of like a WTF moment where you're just watching it and you can't really believe your eyes, but you're also wildly entertained by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that would be a movie that maybe we should be reviewing at some point? Or did it get higher?
Well, I'll look at it. Depends on the rating, because I'm surprised how many people are legitimately like pumped about this film.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be held in higher praise than it deserves, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Maybe that's just me.
I didn't know there was still hype around his movies here. Yeah, when you originally talked about this, I was like, oh, cool. He's still making movies. Awesome.
I know. I think a lot of it has to do with Josh Hartnett's performance.
Okay.
And just seeing him on the screen again. It sits on Rotten Tomatoes at 56%, and the popcorn meter, as we're calling it now, has a 65% rating. So
okay.
That's probably what it deserves, to be honest. But
yeah,
I would love for you to watch it because I want to talk to you more about it. But I don't want to spoil anything. The third act goes off in an entirely different direction, and if anyone hasn't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. But it's a weird movie. It feels like it was made by aliens, but it's also wildly entertaining. So,
like aliens from the movie Aliens. They're making this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that you're still giving him the benefit of the doubt and watching his movies. I feel that I'm kind of like, what else is on TV? But I like that you're still watching the movies, and I also like that he is still making the movies. Like, he hasn't given up.
He is still commercially successful.
Yeah.
I haven't looked up what he's worth or looked up his box office numbers, but at this point, he's got to be one of the most successful directors in Hollywood, but just nobody talks about it. I'm sure of it. Like,
well, I wonder.
He's been pounding out like a movie a year, a movie every 2 years. It's got to be 20 years now.
Yeah. But we have enough of his movies on our podcast as well, because that's, 2 now?
It's 2, and it could be more, but we're gonna give him a rest.
Yeah. At this point, it might turn into bullying, not an upbeat podcast anymore.
Yeah, we need to put his name on a banner and raise it up into the bleachers.
Yeah.
To the rafters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We were talking about this just on our last jury duty, and I wanted to mention the trailer for Smile 2 dropped.
Oh, yeah.
And I highly recommend not watching it because it seems like it gives away the entire film. But it does look pretty good. It looks like a worthy successor of the first one. So I'm excited for that. But I turned off the trailer about 3/4 of the way through because I just felt like there was a lot of cool stuff happening and I didn't want to spoil it. So yeah, that's on my radar. Aaron, let's talk about something that we both finished watching. Terminator Zero.
In a sea of uncertainty, only one thing is clear. Things will get worse before they get better.
What did you think?
It was I liked it. Overall, I would say it was entertaining enough. They introduced some new concepts to the Terminator universe. And then on top of that, it just being a anime, it definitely got that like gruesome, violent anime feel to it. So that was pretty cool to see. It was awesome just seeing all the action in the show there. I feel like when it's an anime, you can get away with a few more things. Like you could be a tad bit more gruesome, and I don't know, people don't take it as quite as serious because it's, at the end of the day, a drawing. But yeah, what did you think of it?
I was pretty perplexed when this was first announced because it just seemed like of all the things to do with this IP, to do an anime on Netflix of all things after the franchise has been dormant since like 2019.
Yeah.
Felt so out of left field. And it's funny because we talked specifically on a jury duty about how they should do a Terminator series. Like 4 years ago, we talked about this. And I mentioned how like this is a global event and it would sure be nice to see a Terminator story that wasn't set in California.
Yeah.
I floated the idea of doing like a time traveling Western style thing.
Yeah.
We didn't get that, but what we got was a Terminator set entirely apart from anyone with the last name Connor and set in Japan. And I was really intrigued by this. The trailers were outstanding. And I don't watch a lot of anime at all. Like this is one of the first animes I've watched in years, just, full disclosure. But I thought it was really cool. It looked stunning. Like the animation was spectacular. The violence was, I think, really well handled and felt really appropriate to the tone of the show. The one thing I'll say is it was a very bleak watch. The Terminator films always have a little bit of humor in them. And this was a very incredibly serious, humorless show. Yeah. From start to finish, it is a bleak commentary on the state of humanity.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was expecting that. I think I was expecting something similar in tone to the movies.
For me as well, I was expecting, maybe a little bit more campy, a little bit more kind of that fun action style.
Yeah. I wasn't sure what direction they were going to take it, but I really liked what they did with the lore.
Yeah.
How they expanded upon it, but in a tasteful way.
Do you think that this is going to become like canon?
Well, I assumed it already was canon. I was thinking about Terminator Dark Fate, and we talked a lot about that movie because, I'm a pretty big fan of this franchise. Tim Miller, who notoriously directed Terminator Dark Fate in 2019, has not directed a feature film since. He did some episodes of Love, Death, and Robots and has since, just done basically writing and producing.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty telling of kind of how that film landed with everybody. And we said back then that we thought it put the series on ice. And if they were going to come back, it had to be something fresh and something serious and grounded and back to its roots. So I think in a lot of ways this show delivered.
Yeah.
And it was surprising and it had some heart to it. And I liked there was a couple little twists that were pretty telegraphed, but also really cool. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't watched it, but I think at the end of the day, Aaron, I felt like it didn't have to be set in the Terminator universe. It almost felt like it could have just been like the story it was without the IP behind it. It didn't really feel Terminator specific, which is, weird to say because there's T-800s in it, Skynet's in it. All that stuff's there and it's mentioned, but at the same time, it didn't feel like what I'm used to Terminator feeling like. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing.
I get what you're saying. I don't know how to describe this. It was, at the end of the day, it was a very good show for its limited, 8 episodes. It introduced a lot of cool concepts. They talked a lot about time travel, which there's time travel in the Terminator movies, but it never goes in depth. And so it was kind of cool to see them go a little bit more in depth talking about the time travel. But what I found is, I don't know, time travel is such a hard thing to do that I think you're better just sticking on the side of vague than trying to explain it because there's just so many nuances when it comes to time travel. But I did like how they presented their time travel lore in this. It seems like before, time travel was only a tool to send someone back in order to prevent something, but in this show, it seemed like it was a lot more of a bigger deal, right? We had multiple characters, and this is a spoiler. I won't say who, but obviously, if you don't want a spoiler, turn the podcast off right now. But basically, there's multiple characters in the show that time travel and there's multiple time periods in this show as well.
Yeah.
So, which I thought was very, very cool. And like I said, very ambitious for an 8 episode, half an hour long. But it was jam-packed with things. I think at times it felt a little slow to me. A little bit forceful. And not only that, but I had a hard time caring for the characters is the other thing. And so that's always an issue, obviously, whenever, someone's trying to murder someone and, they got to be protected. You want to be sympathizing with that character. But for me, it was I found it really hard. I don't know if it's because of my own personal daddy issues, but I just hated the Malcolm character. And I was like, God, I don't want this guy arguing with AI to I don't want my the rest of humanity in this guy's hands. Doesn't even take care of his kids, and yet he's arguing with an AI to save humanity. No, thank you. Get someone else.
For virtually the entirety of the series.
Yeah. And I think that kind of drove me insane because he's like, oh, kids, I got to go to work. And he goes into a room and just starts arguing with the AI. And you're like, I don't know, first of all, an AI has a database of a plethora of information here. And you're just sitting and sorry. I could go
I get it.
I could rage a little too hard over this. But
I love it.
that was one thing. And then the kids weren't so bad, but it was just your classic, nothing special about them. Your classic kids getting mad at their dad because they don't, he doesn't spend enough time with them. And then they act out. So, for me, it was a little bit weak on that side. I don't know what I would have preferred though. That's the thing.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree with what you said about the time travel. I felt like the time travel aspect of these movies has become so convoluted and ridiculous. Like everything, like Genesis was like the nail in the coffin as far as trying to make sense of this mess.
Yeah.
And I felt like this series was so elegant and classy in the way it went back to basics and just kind of deconstructed all of that and kind of tweaked it a little bit in our perspective of it and kind of took ownership of it rather than trying to shoehorn itself into all that nonsense. It did its own thing, and I just thought it was a lot more classy and elegant. I kept thinking, like, man, we've come a long way since the 80s, like sending the killer robot back in time.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it hits me at how funny it is that Terminator became a hit just because there were so many movies that felt very similar to that coming out at the same time. You know? Fast forward to 2024, and we're getting an anime that, in a lot of ways, outclasses most of the films in the series. It's not without problems, but it's very interesting. Like, and I also agree with you about the characters. I found myself not really emotionally invested in the story, but more so just kind of taking it in.
Yeah.
I kept kind of just waiting for things to go off the rails.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for the bombs to fall, and they kind of psych you out a few times, and you're not sure, like, did Skynet launch? Skynet launch? And because there's a lot of artistry in it, and there's a lot of symbolism, and there's a lot of dreams, and there's a lot of things that kind of almost confuse you, but you're constantly on the edge of your seat thinking, okay, is this when things go off the rails? And yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it, but I don't think I'd necessarily watch it again, or I don't know. Now I'm more curious about what this means for the series at large.
That's kind of the other thing the issue that I take with this, because at the end of the day, I think that the newest thing that they introduced into this series was just all that concept of time travel. But at the end of the day, they're just rehashing the exact same thing over again. Now, instead of it's Skynet, now there's like the AI Kokoro, and I mean, we're gonna have to watch the second season to see the way, or like hopefully there is a second season, so that we can see how it plays out. But I'm very much just thinking that this is, just same shit, different pile kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that the Terminator franchise was creatively bankrupt. Maybe 10 years ago, right? So it's like it's hard to look at this and think it's going to be anything but diminishing returns. But I loved that it was set in a different location and that you got a different culture's perspective on this event. I really liked the idea of Kokoro and the idea that she's holding Skynet back and holding humanity in the balance of oblivion. I thought that was really interesting, and she's holding the scales of judgment, and I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
But all I could think was like, I wonder what this would look like in this country or that country, or like all these different stories you could tell. But the problem is, the only thing that's really changing is the cultural lens. Other than that, it's still just time-traveling robots and nukes going off. It's hard to overcome that and elevate that material at this point.
The other thing, too, is I was like, what's the main difference between Skynet and Kokoro? Like, they're both AI systems, right? And apparently the only reason why Kokoro doesn't do anything is because she has free will, or... Well, it has free will.
She wasn't online yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, I don't know. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's just the same thing. I guess there is, it does get into a little bit of philosophy and things like that. And, Terminator has always kind of mirrored Christianity a little bit. And so I'm wondering if they're going to do some sort of, I don't know, maybe Kokoro will become some sort of entity to people. But it'd be, like I said, very, very curious to know if there's going to be a second season and what it's going to be about, because I could see this whole entire first season just being set up.
Yeah, I agree.
Dan, before we end here, let me ask you a question. If you had it your way, what kind of Terminator would you make? I'll give you my thoughts first here while you think about that.
Yeah.
I kind of think I don't know if I necessarily want to go back in time and, rehash the same story, sending someone back in time, but maybe let's get like a resistance story or something like that, Maybe not necessarily the same timeline, but just something that doesn't necessarily even have to be canon, but takes place in there, and it's just I don't know, maybe about a bunch of people trying to survive at a encampment or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be neat to see what the resistance looks like in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain countries like Australia and New Zealand that seem like they would be pretty insulated from major nuclear incidents, and I think it'd be interesting to see what that looks like from their point of view without getting too Mad Maxy about it. It would be interesting. I keep going back to this idea that I mentioned way back in one of our Jury Duty episodes about the idea of a Terminator gets sent back in time, but something happens with the time circuits and the Terminator goes careening back to, say, the Old West or something. And when it lands, it's damaged and it loses its programming, so it's kind of neutral. And then it just becomes kind of this traveling nomad solving people's problems and being this kind of unstoppable force of nature and almost giving it OG Westworld vibes.
Yeah.
That's where my instincts go with the Terminator. But that might be too... It would only be as interesting as the characters, because the Terminator by itself is kind of a slate.
You get an old Arnold just in a Western outfit walking around. I think people would be in for that.
It's possible, but I don't think people are willing to give Terminator a shot on the big screen anymore. It would have to be streaming or not. Not at all. Not after Dark Fate. I just don't see it anymore. I don't see the love that, say, Alien Romulus is getting. I don't see that happening for Terminator.
I mean, it may happen, but we're going to have to give it some time. So hopefully the anime did well enough that that it'll start to reignite some fires here. Maybe we might get something. But with that being said, I hope that they definitely get the right people involved and they take it in an actual good direction.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, should we announce our next mainline episode?
Yeah, definitely. Winnie the Pooh.
Blood and honey.
Blood and Pooh.
The first entry into the new Poohniverse. And why not, right?
How is it not called season. Blood and Pooh?
I know. Maybe the next one will be called Blood and Pooh.
Yeah.
I was a little bit hesitant about tackling it because it just feels like such a cash grab. But then I started to look into it a bit. I looked at the box office and I watched the first 20 minutes and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing this.
Oh, it looks like a lot of fun, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Can't wait to roll it out. So, yeah, Aaron, is there anything else you want to tackle?
No, I think that wraps it up.
Awesome. Cool. Well, bit of a longer Jury Duty episode this time around. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, and again, thanks for the love, thanks for the downloads, and thank you for continuing to listen to us ramble on about movies. We will see you in the next episode of In Defense of a Movie Podcast.
Bye.